Hi, I'm Chandana Ekanaika, the game director on Thirsty Suitors.
Hi, I'm Meghna Jayanth, and I'm a narrative designer on Thirsty Suitors.
We're showing some of the new gameplay, like skating and cooking, as well as some of the battling your ex's turn-based combat.
I think we asked this before, but I have to ask again, where did the idea for this game come from? What were the concepts?
I think it came from the idea we wanted to do a game about immigrant story, and we've been chatting a lot about it while we were working on our previous game, Falcon Age, and then it's turned into a game about fighting your exes, and then it turned to a game about plus reconciling with your parents, and then skateboarding in between. It just kind of grew out of an idea of wanting to tell this immigrant story.
Yeah, I think it was just we wanted to make a game for us, and that kind of was a very new opportunity working in with this specific team that Outerloop kind of brings together. Loads of us are immigrants. It's like my first time in the industry working so closely with another brown person. So, we have so much sort of shared and in common. So yeah, we just ended up kind of figuring out that this was the story we wanted to tell.
Your game's incredibly diverse and inclusive. Talk about why you think that's so important in 2023, especially in gaming.
I mean, for us, it's just like we want to tell our own stories, and that's not around. And the team is, very diverse and compared to everything else in the game industry. So it's like we don't think of it as like a diverse game. We think of it as the stories that we are doing as a team and through our fantasies. So.
Yeah, it's real and relatable. It's a story about family and love and making horrible mistakes and kind of facing up to them. I think of course it's a very specific story grounded in all of the, kind of cultural richness that we have on the team and that we bring. But it's also deeply universal. And I think, everyone will find something to kind of enjoy in it. Our non-games friends are excited about it, I think, it's not a game about saving the world. It's a game about going home and making up with your family.
What are some of the challenges when writing for a video game? Do you start with the story first, then kind of get mechanics around that? Do you change some things with the story when mechanics are added in, or vice versa?
Well, no. So I guess narrative design as a practice and a craft is all about an integration of story and mechanics. I don't think there's any such thing as a story that is separate from the medium that it's told in. So we came up, we talked deeply about the themes and the ideas and what we wanted to convey to the player and what our message was. And then as the mechanics kind of form themselves, the story evolves around that. And it's very much like a iterative back and forth, And it was really nice to have the time to really do that with Outerloop and be involved from the beginning of the project as narrative.
Yeah, I mean, when we say story, there's the things the player does, but there's also the written words, and so those are all, the more we can have the player experience both, the better, right? So the mechanics will change, the writing will change, the pacing will change. It's all very integrated together.
Yeah, I mean, and the animation itself is telling a story too, right? The story is really just not limited to words at all. And I think I wanted to be deeply aware of that, give space to all of the other elements and crafts that are there in the game that are telling this story.
Is there a balance between the humor aspect and the narrative aspect? Because I'm sure there are points in your game where you're very serious and other points where you're very funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I hope we're generally really funny. Yeah. I hope that we're funny enough to get away with our few moments of sincerity, because it's a kind of ridiculous, absurd situation. I think tonally we kind of really went for anime as a reference. Yeah. And I think that very much has that heightened tone, colorful, joyous, outrageous absurdity, but also moments of deep heart and sincerity where we're not, it's not ironic and it's very sincere. It's not a satire,
Yeah, I mean, thematically it's about repairing relationships in all forms, so we wanted to be very sincere about it. And being really goofy and funny and over the top in other points too. So.
What's it when you're designing the game and getting feedback on the combat and the mechanic elements, and how do you tweak those based on community feedback and internal feedback?
Yeah, we always start, design is about what we're trying to accomplish for the project. And the combat's a little more easier to engage with than most RPG games, and so we do a lot of play testing, external play testing, other friends and family, and then we kind of look at all that data and see what we're trying to do with it, and adjust. It's still an ongoing process for us. Yeah.
I think it's quite well because it's quite hybrid. Yes, you can kind of pull from references for the combat, but it's also so deeply narrative, and it's kind of its own thing. And our three narrative pillars of battles with your exes, skateboarding, and cooking. To kind of pull those all together, it's something a little bit new. So yeah, I guess there's a lot of interesting experimentation and iteration. But yeah, hopefully we pulled it off.
Yeah, thematically too, it's an RPG mechanics, but the status effects are different moods, you know, and things you can inflict is you can put somebody in a rage mood or a thirsty mood or impressed, and how do we map sort of traditional RPG tropes into the emotional story that we're telling? That's been a lot of just iteration and playtesting, and make sure the player understands what happens. That's part of that. So.
Now I'm curious, you did work on a VR game.
Yeah.
Did this ever come up for Thirsty Suitors? I mean, have you guys messed around with that concept for this game?
No, because it's like the sort of the goal and theme of the game was different than trying to make a VR game. So it's like we also wanted it to be played by folks that don't normally play these kind of games. So I think that's been exciting for us to be able to play with our parents at some point.
Yeah.
I've seen my dad in VR, it's not good. So my next question is, as POCs in the game development space, have you had any barriers you have to break or challenges specifically to you and your culture?
Yes.
Of course.
Daily. This game, I don't think we could have got it funded or published even 5 years ago. So I think, part of the pitch was like, hey, we're seeing a lot more sort of other immigrant stories and other platforms like Netflix and Amazon and film. And our pitch was like, hey, we can do this in games. There's an audience for it, and there's an underserved audience for it.
Yeah, I think people are really hungry for these stories, and I know I am, Like, it's a game that, I think you really notice people walking by, even our actors, they kind of stop and they're kind of attracted to it because I think it looks like nothing else out there. And there's something really powerful in people kind of seeing themselves too. But yeah, I think there's like a deep audience for this. So it's really exciting to be able to kind of be at a stage in our careers where we're kind of able to do this, and hopefully, we'll see more and more of this kind of work in the industry, because I think it is actually fresh and exciting and brings something deeply important that's been kind of missing, actually.
Yeah.
So what's next for your studio after Thirsty Suitors? Any plans you can talk about? Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Lots of rest.
Yeah.
We're still finishing the game, so after that, I think for us always it's like we're gonna release a game, see what people say about it, and then figure out next steps.
Yeah. When does your game come out? What platforms will it be on at launch?
It'll be on every platform. We just don't have a release date yet.
Sometime in the future.
Yeah, sometime not today.
Soon, hopefully.